The soft golden light of morning spilled through the windows of Levi Lapp's farmhouse, stretching long and thin across the creaky wooden floorboards. Each year, on this very day, time seemed to move slower, thicker, as though the weight of memory itself pressed down on every beam and corner of the home. This wasn't a day for celebration. It was a day carved out by silence, sorrow, and the unanswered questions that had haunted this community for 10 long years. 10 years since they vanished. His brother Aaron, sweet Miriam. Their 5 children, Eli, Michael, Sarah, Ruth, and baby Daisy, gone without a trace. The only thing they left behind was a short note in Aaron's familiar handwriting. Gone for the weekend. Visiting family for church matters. We'll return Monday. Don't worry about the animals. We've arranged for neighbor boys to help. But Monday came and went. So did every other Monday after that. Now, Levi stood in what had once been his modest, comfortable living room, now transformed into a sacred space of remembrance. Where his couch and coffee table usually sat, there were now rows of plain wooden chairs, arranged with care and reverence before dawn. The coffee table had been moved to the barn to make space for what today had become a gathering not for answers, but for shared grief. At precisely 8 a.m., the members of their old order Amish community had arrived, quiet as breath, solemn as prayer. The men in their black suits and broad-brimmed hats, the women in their dark dresses and prayer coverings, each of them carrying stories, memories, fragments of a family no longer present. For 2 hours they prayed. They sang hymns in Pennsylvania Dutch, voices trembling like candlelight. Minister Yodar spoke about the mysteries of God's will, the challenge of holding faith when the path disappears beneath your feet. By the time the clock on the mantel struck 10, most had quietly returned to their farms and morning chores, their black buggies rolling back down the gravel road. Only a few remained, those closest to the family, those who still held out hope, or perhaps guilt. People like Mary Stoltzfus, Miriam's dearest friend, her handkerchief damp from too many years of tears. Or Joseph King, the elder neighbor whose weathered farm bordered Aaron's land. Levi noticed the way Joseph sat, hands folded tight in his lap, like a man still keeping secrets from himself. "Shall we?" Levi asked softly. They gathered tighter now, a small circle surrounding the kitchen table that had been moved to the center of the room. On it lay an assortment of cherished mementos, worn photographs, a child's hair ribbon, a baby's shoe, and at the heart of it all, the note. Encased in a clear sleeve, preserved as if sacred scripture, the same message that had broken their world. Levi lifted it gently, his fingers brushing its edges as if holding a ghost. Though he knew the words by heart, the weight of them never grew lighter. "Gone for the weekend," Mary spoke, her voice like a cracked bell. "Every year I read that note, and every year I wonder what church matter was so urgent it pulled them away so quickly, and what family were they even visiting?" Samuel, Levi's cousin, leaned forward. "We are their family. We checked with everyone, from Ohio to Indiana, even Ontario. Nobody saw them, not once." The silence that followed was heavy. Esther reached for a photograph, one taken just days before the family disappeared. It showed them all standing on their front porch, the sun warm on their faces, Aaron tall and stoic, Miriam cradling baby Daisy, the children smiling and arranged by height, their clothes simple, the laundry line behind them fluttering like flags of a peaceful kingdom that would soon fall. "Such beautiful children," she whispered. Her voice cracked as she counted silently. Eli would be 23 now, Michael 21, Sarah 19, Ruth just 14, and little Daisy. Daisy would be 10, a decade lost in a blink. Levi opened a worn manila folder and revealed the thin police file, copies of interviews, a brief timeline, the report from state authorities who had been reluctant to dig too deep into the insular Amish world. The investigation had fizzled out within weeks. No foul play, no leads, just silence. We did what we thought was best, Joseph said, as if reading Levi's inner doubt. Our ways don't involve the English police unless we must. We truly believed they would return. We held to hope. But they didn't, Rebecca said gently. And now, every year we gather and wonder if we should have done more. Daniel Zuck, a quiet man who rarely spoke unless something mattered deeply, reached for the photograph Esther had placed down. But this version was slightly different. A police copy. Larger, clearer. As he studied it, something shifted in his expression. Levi, he said slowly, this picture. It was taken the morning they were supposed to leave? Levi nodded, his brow furrowing. Yes, that's what Aaron's note said. Daniel turned the photo toward them and pointed to the laundry line in the background. Look, fresh laundry hanging. See here, the clothes are still wet at the bottom. That means it had just been hung out to dry, early morning. But if they were leaving that day, why would Miriam do laundry? A hush fell over the room, like the breath before thunder, because it made no sense. And just like that, something shifted. The years of quiet mourning twisted, tightening around this new thread. Something subtle, something wrong. A single overlooked detail that might change everything. Samuel leaned forward, the photograph trembling slightly in his hand. Why would Miriam do laundry the morning they were leaving for the entire weekend? He asked, the question heavy with implication. The clothes would have been ruined, by rain, by bugs, by the sun. No good Amish housewife would leave, washing out for 3 days. His voice hung in the air like dust caught in the light. The others leaned in, their gazes drawn once again to the photo. A soft gasp escaped Mary's lips. Wait, is that a vest? Levi squinted, the colors in the image sharpening through his memory. Nestled among the usual somber tones of Amish clothing, blues, blacks, earth tones, was something bright, startling. Neon. A cold ripple passed through his chest. He recognized it instantly. That's a police vest, he murmured, his voice suddenly dry. Police! Esther's voice cracked like a twig snapping underfoot. Levi nodded slowly, images forming in his mind as the past flooded back. Officer Paul Brenner, he said, almost to himself. He used to visit often. Helped Aaron with fence repairs, barn raisings. He was different. A good Englishman. Always respected our ways. I remember, Joseph added, frowning. He never tried to change us, never preached modern ways. But Levi's brow furrowed. Then why would his vest be in Miriam's laundry? The room fell silent again, the vest now blinding in their minds. The fluorescent yellow-green fabric practically burned through the muted photograph. The partial word, police, shimmered like a secret long buried. I don't ever remember him coming to get it, Levi added. Even after Aaron vanished, Brenner would still stop by, check in on us, on Mother. But he never asked about a missing vest. His voice softened as his mind turned inward. Ripka. May she rest, he said, thinking of his late wife. She packed up a lot of their things, back when we knew they weren't coming home. Maybe she stored it. Esther sat down the photograph, her hands shaking. Perhaps we should talk to Officer Brenner. It might mean nothing, but after 10 years, even the smallest thing could matter. Levi hesitated. Mother, what could he say now? The police closed the case. We chose to accept it, to move on. Mary's eyes narrowed with quiet strength. We say we accept it, she said firmly. But we gather every year because our hearts haven't. Maybe it is God's will that we stop waiting for answers and finally go looking for them. Levi felt something shift deep inside, an old ache stirred by truth. He nodded. I'll find the vest. If nothing else, I should return it to Officer Brenner. The others agreed with murmurs and nods. The room softened with resolution. For the next half hour, they passed around the remaining mementos. Aaron's old hymnal, Miriam's worn quilting thimble, crayon drawings from the children, a corn husk doll with one eye missing. each item a prayer in the hands of the living, a relic of those they had loved. As the hour neared noon, the gathering dissolved. There were hugs, quiet words of gratitude, and the comfort of repeated traditions. "We'll see you at church on Sunday," Samuel said, placing his black hat gently on his head. "Thank you for hosting," Rebecca added. "It means more to remember them here, where they truly lived." "It was Mother's idea," Levi replied, casting a glance at Esther. "She thought maybe, just maybe, this house could bring us closer to the truth." One by one, the buggies rolled down the gravel drive until only Levi and his mother remained. She began collecting the papers and photos, her hands graceful, deliberate. "I'll help put the furniture back," she offered. "No, Mother. Rest," Levi said gently. "I'll take you home and handle it later." In the kitchen drawer, his fingers closed around two brass keys, cool and unfamiliar from disuse. One opened Aaron's old house. The other belonged to the smaller farmhouse he'd purchased the year before he vanished, land he'd spoken of developing. He escorted Esther to the car, a modest compromise allowed by their order for his furniture business, and drove her down the quiet lane. Even as the trees whispered above them and the afternoon sun warmed the fields, Levi's mind kept circling that image of the vest. Too modern, too bright, too wrong. After leaving his mother at her home, he turned down the narrow road to Aaron's property. The place had become like a wound he refused to touch. The maple tree Aaron planted the summer before he disappeared now loomed large, its branches brushing against the porch roof like the fingers of a ghost. The key groaned in the lock, and the house sighed open. The air inside was dry, heavy with years of stillness. Levi stepped into memory. He searched first in the hallway closet, empty but for cobwebs. The canning room off the kitchen was barren. Upstairs, the master bedroom remained, its frame stripped bare, its silence thick. But there, at the foot of the bed, sat a wooden chest. His hands trembled as he opened it. The hinges squeaked, the lid creaked, and the past exhaled. Inside, Ripka had arranged the items like sacred relics. A worn work shirt that still held Aaron's shape, a carved wooden toy, smooth with use, and atop it all, folded with care, was the vest. Fluorescent, clean, police emblazoned across the back, a patch over the heart. P. Brenner. Miriam had washed it, dried it, folded it. Why? Levi's breath hitched. He stood slowly, vest in hand, and pulled out his cell phone. He scrolled to Brenner's number, one they'd exchanged years ago. The phone rang. No answer. Voicemail. He hung up without speaking. It didn't feel right to leave a message. Not for something like this. Levi debated calling the station, but the thought of explaining it to a stranger on the other end, being transferred or misunderstood, it clashed with everything he was raised to value. Simplicity, face-to-face truth. He tucked the vest under his arm and left the house, locking it behind him. Then he paused. A memory. Aaron had once mentioned pressure from developers, people wanting his land. Big plans. Levi circled to the back of the house, expecting change. But the land was unchanged. Just farmland, fences, oak trees standing like sentries on the horizon. Still, something didn't sit right. The vest now sat on the passenger seat of Levi's car as he drove to town. He passed the familiar countryside, but it felt sharper now, every detail brimming with hidden meaning. The New Holland police station stood quiet beneath a fluttering flag. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed and the air smelled like floor wax and burnt coffee. Levi stepped up to the front desk. "Good afternoon," he said, voice calm but firm. "I'm looking for Officer Paul Brenner. Is he available?" The nameplate read Jenkins, and the young officer barely looked up from his screen as Levi approached the front desk. "Brenner's out in the field. Left around noon," Jenkins said, his tone casual, distracted. "Can I help you with something or take a message?" Levi adjusted the vest in his hands, feeling the weight of it more heavily now that he was this close to handing it off. "It's a personal matter," he said quietly. "I have something that belongs to him, from a while ago. I'd prefer to give it to him directly." Jenkins shrugged, the kind of shrug that meant it wasn't his concern. "Field duty's unpredictable. Could be an hour. Could be the end of his shift. I can take your info, have him call you." Levi hesitated, then shook his head. "No, thank you. I'll try again later. It's best handled face-to-face." "Suit yourself," Jenkins said, already turning back to his monitor. "He's usually in during the mornings." Outside, Levi sat behind the wheel for a moment, the vest resting on the seat beside him like a question that had waited a decade for an answer. He debated whether to wait or come back tomorrow, but the old farmhouse still needed checking. He was already out this way. Why not press forward? He left town behind, the scenery growing more open, more familiar. Farmland unspooled in waves of green and gold. He was halfway to Aaron's second property, passing quiet homesteads and tidy barns, when something caught his eye on the Yodar farm. Two men in dark uniforms, ones that didn't belong. Levi pulled over sharply and stepped out. As he approached, he heard Jakob's raised voice, firm but clearly distressed. "I told you yesterday, and the day before, this land is not for sale. It has been in my family for generations." The two men standing in front of a black truck didn't wear local law enforcement gear. Their uniforms were too dark, too generic. No patches, no names, no badges. Just black fabric and a presence that felt wrong. "Times change, Mr. Yodar," one of them replied with a polished but cold tone. "The offer is more than fair. You could find better land elsewhere." "There is no better land," Jakob replied firmly. "Not better than what God has entrusted us with. Now please, leave my property." The second man stepped forward, the aggression rising just beneath the surface. "You Amish think you can just sit on valuable land forever, doing nothing, contributing nothing to progress or the economy." Levi's voice rang out before he could stop himself. "Is there a problem here?" The three men turned. Jakob looked visibly relieved. The two strangers shared a look, their expressions briefly unreadable. The first man smiled, too smoothly. "No problem. Just a business discussion." "Doesn't look like Mr. Yodar's interested," Levi said, stepping beside Jakob. "And he's asked you to leave." The second man's jaw flexed. "And you are?" "A neighbor," Levi said simply, pulling his cell phone from his pocket and holding it where they could see. "And someone ready to call the police if you don't respect this man's rights." The first man stared at him, then reached into his pocket and tossed a card at Jakob's feet. "Think about our offer, Mr. Yodar. We'll be back." They walked away slowly, deliberately. Intimidation masked as indifference. Their truck bore no markings. Levi memorized the plate as they drove off. "Thank you, Levi," Jakob said, his voice low, bending to pick up the card. "They've come every day this week. Same offer, more push each time." "What do they want?" Levi asked, frowning. "They talk of development, progress, making better use of the land, but never specifics." Jakob's face shifted with something darker, an uneasiness that didn't come easily to a man like him. "You know," he said after a pause, "this happened once before. Years ago. Maybe a decade. Different men, same pressure, same vague promises. Then it all stopped. Suddenly. Levi felt a chill run down his spine. 10 years ago," he said quietly, "around the time my brother vanished." Jakob nodded. "Yes, now that you say it. Maybe a few months before Aaron disappeared, he had men coming by too. I remember he was troubled. Talked to the bishop about it, then..." His voice faded. "These men, did they say who they work for?" Levi asked. Jakob handed him the card. Plain white. No logo. Just a number and the words Land Development Associates. No address, no names. "I'm heading to talk with Officer Brenner," Levi said. "I'll mention this. He's always looked out for our community." I'd appreciate that, Jakob said. I doubt much can be done. They're just asking, not threatening. But still, I don't like the way they look at the land. Keep others close, Jakob. Don't be alone when they come back. I won't. God bless you, Levi. Back in his car, Levi felt the gravity of old memories stirring. Secrets buried by time and silence were beginning to resurface. As he reached Aaron's second property, he slowed. 2 old stone pillars marked the entrance. But what caught his eye wasn't the driveway. It was the patrol car across the road. The engine idled quietly, the driver's window down. Officer Paul Brenner sat behind the wheel, sunglasses hiding his eyes until Levi approached. Brenner removed his shades, and for a moment, the lines around his eyes deepened with a familiar warmth. Levi Lapp, good to see you. How are you holding up? I'm managing, Levi said carefully. Didn't expect to see you here. Brenner shrugged. Was passing by. Thought I'd keep an eye on the place. Hard to believe it's been 10 years. I still think about that case sometimes. Levi's throat tightened at the sentiment. That's kind of you to remember. I actually stopped by the station looking for you earlier, he added. I found something at Aaron's house. Something of yours. Levi returned to his car and retrieved the vest, holding it up as he returned. Brenner took it, confusion on his face. A vest? I don't... He turned it over. Then recognition flickered. Oh, right. This is mine. I completely forgot about it. How did it end up at Aaron's? Levi asked. Brenner rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. That morning. The morning they left. I stopped by to talk to Aaron. Miriam invited me in. She wouldn't take no for an answer. You remember how she was? Levi nodded, a lump rising in his throat. I spilled soup. Vegetable, I think. Got it all over my vest. Miriam insisted on washing it. I told her not to bother, but he gave a small smile. You didn't argue with Miriam Lapp when she decided to help. Levi's mind reeled. I never heard about that visit. May I ask what you were discussing with Aaron? Brenner's face changed. Just for a second. A flicker of something. Unease? Guilt? He didn't answer right away. And that silence said more than words ever could. Oh, it's been so long. Brenner exhaled, buying time with the excuse. I think it was about neighborhood safety. Some development plans had stirred concern in the area. Development plans? Levi leaned in, his pulse ticking up. Aaron mentioned something like that to me once. Private developers wanting to build a road through the back of his property. Brenner nodded, seeming to relax slightly. That's right. There was a company, pretty aggressive, trying to buy up land for a project. The community raised concerns. The department worked with local officials to stall it. I must have been checking in, making sure Aaron wasn't being pressured unfairly. Levi pictured Jakob Yodar, fear etched into every line of his face just an hour ago. Speaking of pressure, he said, voice firm. I just came from Jakob's farm. 2 men were there, dark uniforms, no badges, no names. They've been harassing him all week. Brenner's expression sharpened, eyes narrowing. No identification? None I could see. They backed off when I threatened to call you, but they left this behind. Levi held out the plain business card. Brenner examined it, frowning, then handed it back. I'll talk to Jakob myself. No one should be intimidating our Amish neighbors. Not on my watch. Levi nodded, a flicker of appreciation surfacing. The community trusts you. You've always stood with us. Brenner's mouth opened to respond, but his gaze shifted past Levi's shoulder. His entire posture shifted, alert, tense. Levi turned and saw the black truck approaching from the road, the same one that had confronted Jakob. Listen, Brenner said quickly, his hand already on the ignition. I'll follow up on this, and we should definitely talk more about your brother's case. There may be connections, threads we didn't notice before, but right now, I've got to make this meeting. Of course. Levi stepped back, unsettled but respectful. Thanks for returning the vest, Brenner called, already pulling onto the road. Take care, Levi. Levi stood still, watching as the patrol car slipped in behind the black truck, following it discreetly. He allowed himself a moment of hope. Brenner was acting fast, maybe even ahead of him. He turned his car toward Aaron's second farmhouse. The gravel driveway was nearly lost to weeds, a faded scar through tall grass. The house loomed, silent, weathered, forgotten. The paint peeled in long curls. A shutter hung at an angle like a crooked eyelid. The for sale sign leaned against a post, half buried in the soil of years gone by. It had been 5 years since Levi listed it. Only a few had shown interest. Most English buyers were wary of owning land in the heart of Amish country. Amish families already had land, or couldn't afford the asking price. Inside, dust hung in the air like secrets. Levi found some cleaning supplies, their labels yellowed, but miraculously still usable. He swept mouse droppings from the corners, lost in thought, when he heard the sound of tires crunching on the gravel. Through the window, he spotted a sedan, not a buggy, not a pickup, a sleek, modern vehicle that didn't belong. A well-dressed man stepped out, glancing at the for sale sign before approaching the door with the easy confidence of someone accustomed to negotiations. Levi opened it. "Good afternoon," the man said with a polished smile. "Is this property still available?" "Yes," Levi replied warily. "I manage it for the family." "Excellent. I'd like to take a look." Levi gestured inside. "Of course. Though I'll warn you, it's been empty for years." The man moved quickly, eyes scanning rooms with a detached efficiency. He barely noticed the peeling wallpaper or creaky floorboards. Instead, he peered out the windows, calculating, checking sight lines. "What's your asking price?" he asked finally. Levi quoted the figure he'd set years ago. Fair, modest for the acreage and structures. The man laughed. "For this condition, I'll give you half." Levi's heart stung. That's well below even the land value. It's remote, surrounded by plain communities. "Limited development potential," the man said smoothly. "Half is generous." Levi's mind wrestled. He didn't want to sell to someone like this, but the property had drained money and energy for years. "I could come down 15%, he said cautiously. "I'll meet you in the middle," the man interrupted, pulling out a folded map. "Let me show you my plans." He spread the paper across the dusty counter. Red lines marked the property. Development zones, labels, footpaths. But Levi's eyes snagged on a marking beyond the farmhouse, a circled area in the mountains to the north. Strange symbols. No labels. "What's that?" Levi asked, pointing. The man quickly folded that part of the map under. "Nothing related to this property." He continued with his pitch. Some talk of a country retreat, bed and breakfast tourism, but Levi's focus had fractured. That mountain symbol. Something about it felt important. In the end, Levi settled, less than he wanted, but more than the insult. Enough to cover taxes and leave something for his mother. "Excellent," the man said, producing a business card. "Let's draw up the paperwork. Can you follow me to my office now?" Levi hesitated. Something felt off, rushed, but 5 years of nothing had worn him down. "All right, lead the way." They drove through winding roads until the landscape changed abruptly. Where cornfields had once waved in the breeze stood a glass and steel building, shiny, cold, and out of place. Levi stared at the massive parking lot, far too large for such a remote area. "Impressive facility," he offered politely. "We believe in making a statement," the man replied, unlocking the glass doors. "Professional space for professional work." Inside, it was all sharp edges, chrome and polished tile. A woman in a dark uniform sat at the reception desk. No logo, no name tag. Levi froze for a breath. The uniform matched the men from Jacob's farm. "This is Mr. Lapp," the man said. "He needs visitor registration." The woman nodded, sliding a clipboard toward him. "License and signature here, here, and here." The buyer disappeared down a hallway. leaving Levi with the receptionist. He fumbled for his license, the unfamiliar ritual feeling cold and invasive. Outside, something moved. Through the window, he watched the black truck pull into the lot, followed by Brenner's patrol car, but neither vehicle stopped. Instead, they kept driving. Around the back, up the mountain road. "Ma'am," Levi said, trying to keep his voice steady. "What's up that road?" The woman didn't look up. "I wouldn't know. You'd have to ask Mr. Davidson." "Davidson? That's the man buying the house?" She nodded. "Yes." Levi turned away, unsettled. Near the window stood a glass display, an architectural model of the development. He leaned closer. There it was, his community, reduced to scaled-down facades. Amish farms replaced by shopping centers, housing clusters. Even his mother's home was gone. One area remained untouched, a circled zone atop the mountain labeled with a tiny building. A church? Number A plaque identified it. Amish Heritage Memorial, preserving the memory of Pennsylvania's plain people. Memory, not community, not presence. Levi's blood chilled. That marked Mountain Spot. It was the same as on Davidson's map. Dust still hung outside where the vehicles had passed. Was that where Brenner had gone? And why? A voice cut through his thoughts. "Sir, I need you to sign these forms." Levi turned slowly, the pen suddenly heavy in his hand. His choice loomed before him, and the truth might be just up that mountain. "Actually," Levi said, taking a half-step backward, fingers tightening around the doorknob, "I just remembered something urgent I need to handle." The receptionist's gaze narrowed with suspicion. "Mr. Davidson is expecting you. The paperwork is ready. I'll be back later today or tomorrow at the latest." "I'm sorry, sir," she said, her voice clipped. Mr. Davidson doesn't like to be kept waiting. But Levi was already through the door, letting it close behind him. As he moved quickly toward his car, he caught the sound of her voice rising, urgent, sharp, into the phone. He didn't wait to hear the rest. In seconds, his engine roared to life, and he peeled out of the lot, gravel crackling beneath his tires. The mountain road loomed ahead, narrow, unpaved, winding like a secret no one was supposed to follow. The path twisted and bucked, pitted with potholes meant for heavy machinery, not sedans. The sun flashed through the trees in jagged bursts of light and shadow, forcing Levi to squint, one hand shielding his eyes while the other gripped the wheel. What was he racing toward? A construction model that seemed more like a mausoleum than a memorial. Developers pressuring Amish families. Brenner's evasive answers. The strange marking on the mountain. It all stirred inside him. A cyclone of gut-deep dread and raw, sharpened instinct. The road grew steeper, the forest denser. The world narrowed until all he could see was the path ahead, and all he could hear was the pounding of his heart. Finally, the road leveled off. Through the thinning trees, he spotted Brenner's patrol car, parked just outside a fenced-off clearing. Levi pulled into a brush-covered turnout, shut off the engine, and stepped out quietly into the hush of mountain air. What he saw next stopped him cold. Beyond the fence stood a sprawling construction site. Bulldozers, stacks of timber, concrete slabs and scaffolded walls, but the building taking shape, its steep, gabled roof, whitewashed boards, and wide front steps, wasn't just any building. It was a lie dressed as reverence. A replica of an Amish meeting house, bigger, cleaner, exaggerated. A Hollywood version of something sacred. A tourist's fantasy of simplicity, repackaged for profit. Levi moved closer, keeping to the tree line. He crouched behind a section of fence wrapped in black mesh, listening. Inside, Brenner stood with two men Levi instantly recognized, the ones who had harassed Jacob. Their voices carried on the mountain breeze. "This memorial house will be perfect," one of them was saying, gesturing proudly. "Preserve the memory of Amish life in this region. Tourists love that kind of thing." "The narrative sells itself," the other chimed in, smirking. "Simple folk, noble struggles. a way of life erased by modernity. Very touching, very marketable. Levi clenched his jaw. The air felt thin. Brenner nodded slowly. Once the last families agree to relocate, the rest of the development can move forward. How long before that happens? One of the men asked. It's a long-term play, the first said. We waited 10 years already. What's a few more months? But with your help, officer, we can be persuasive. The second man scoffed. These Amish don't get it. They don't see progress when it's right in front of them. Then his tone turned darker. Sometimes, I think the only way to deal with them is... He stopped, glanced around, then laughed. Let's just say this place is built on Amish bones. Levi's stomach turned violently. Literally, the man added with a grin. We've got them right here. The whole family, plus a few others who got too curious over the years. Levi's knees nearly gave out. Aaron, Miriam, the children. No. There'll be more, the man said. Once we clear out the rest, a few accidents, some fear. We get what we want. Shopping centers, real homes, economic potential, not farmland rotting in the hands of backward people. He turned to Brenner, his voice smooth and poisonous. And you'll help us, just like before. Your reputation in the community? It's golden. The department trusts you. No one's going to question your reports. Brenner nodded, almost absently. I've earned that trust. They won't interfere. Levi stood frozen behind the fence. The world around him felt as if it had dropped away. Every instinct screamed that he was standing at the edge of something far darker than he'd imagined. He spotted a hard hat and safety vest hanging from the fence, a worker's brake gear, forgotten for now. Without a second thought, Levi threw them on, the vest loose around his frame, the helmet wobbling on his head. But from a distance, he might pass. He slipped through a gap in the chain link. Head down, shoulders squared. Walk like you belong. He followed at a distance as the trio moved across the site. They stopped at the far end of the foundation, where rebar jutted from poured concrete and the walls stood only waist high. One of the developers pointed to the ground. Dig here, he said to a nearby worker who was idling in, a small backhoe. The operator hesitated, but nodded. The bucket sank into the earth, peeling away layers of soil. After only a few scoops, the machine stopped. The operator leaned forward, staring at something in the dirt. That's enough, the developer called. He and his companion descended into the hole. Levi crept closer, ducking behind a stack of lumber. Then he saw it. A bone. The man held it up, long, smooth, human, a femur. He handed it to Brenner, who turned it in his hands, calmly, clinically, then dropped it back into the dirt like it was nothing. You see, the man said, we stored them here. Levi's breath caught in his throat. Whole family, plus a few others, and there will be more, once we finish clearing out the valley. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. All of this gone, replaced with something useful, something profitable, and we'll finally be rid of these ghosts in bonnets and horse-drawn wagons. Brenner didn't flinch. The community won't suspect a thing, he said quietly. They trust me. Always have. And in that moment, Levi realized the truth. The man they had trusted, the man they had mourned with, prayed beside, welcomed into their homes, had been part of the darkness all along. And now, Levi was the only one who knew, and the only one who could stop it. Levi stumbled back from the edge of the construction site, his entire body trembling. His mind reeled. Aaron, Miriam, the children, all buried beneath this grotesque monument, this fraudulent tribute to a culture that was being erased before it could be remembered. He forced his limbs to move, stepping carefully, quietly, retracing his steps to the fence. At the edge, he tore off the hard hat and vest, tossing them aside like they were soaked in poison. Then, he ran. The forest swallowed him, the dirt path twisting below as he reached his car, flung open the door, and roared the engine to life. His hands shook on the wheel, sweat clinging to his brow. His phone showed no signal. Of course, the site was too remote. But halfway down the mountain, 2 bars flickered to life. He pulled over, his breath ragged, and punched in 911. 911, what's your emergency? Levi gripped the phone like a lifeline. My name is Levi Lapp, he said, fighting to steady his voice. I need to report a murder, multiple murders, and police corruption. Sir, please remain calm. What's your location? He recited the mile markers, the road names, the construction site at the summit. They're building a fake Amish memorial, he said, voice cracking. I saw them digging up bones, human bones. Officer Paul Brenner is involved. He's been helping them. They murdered my brother's entire family 10 years ago. There was a pause on the line. Sir, these are serious accusations. Are you certain of what you saw? I saw the bones, Levi whispered. I heard them talking about killing more Amish families. Please, you have to come. You'll find the evidence. Just dig where they were digging. We're dispatching local units now, sir, the operator said. State police have been notified as well due to the nature of your report. Please remain at your current location. Levi kept the engine running, watching the road. The air charged with anticipation. And then, sirens. Multiple police cars tore up the mountain. Levi followed behind. When they reached the site, everything erupted. Officers swarmed like hornets, weapons holstered but ready. Brenner stepped out of the faux meeting house, saw the flashing lights, and his face went pale. The 2 developers made a move for their truck, but Levi cut them off, slamming his car into position across their path. Brenner marched toward him. Levi, he said, his voice laced with artificial authority. Move your vehicle, now! Levi stepped out, eyes blazing. I saw everything. He pointed toward the excavation. The bones, my brother's family, maybe others, you helped murder them. This is outrageous, Brenner barked. Officers, this man is making wild accusations, but the newly arrived sergeant held up a hand. Officer Brenner, he said coolly, we need you to step aside while we conduct a full investigation. This is a misunderstanding, Brenner protested. He's grief-stricken, confused. Then you won't mind if we look around, the sergeant replied. 2 officers climbed down into the hole. Within seconds, one shouted, Sergeant, we've got human remains here. Brenner turned and ran. A single gunshot cracked the sky. A warning. Nobody move, a voice roared. Brenner froze. The 2 developers were halfway to their truck before the officers caught them. One by one they were handcuffed, their postures sagging under the weight of discovery. Brenner didn't resist. His face was hollowed out by something beyond fear. The mask had shattered. As officers led him to a cruiser, the developers began shouting about legal rights, denial. It didn't matter. The evidence was being unearthed behind them. Bones, clothing fragments, time-stained lies. We need to go to their office, Levi said. The man trying to buy my farm, Davidson, he's involved too. The sergeant nodded. We're on it. You'll need to give a full statement. More police moved in. The caravan of flashing lights descended the mountain. Silent now, respectful, like a funeral procession. At the sleek office building at the mountain's base, officers swept through the doors. Levi waited outside, watching through glass as Davidson was handcuffed. The receptionist's face frozen in disbelief. Papers gathered, computer towers removed. The corruption had roots, but they were being pulled from the ground now. It was over, not the grief, not the loss, but the silence. At the police station, Levi sat under harsh fluorescent lights, numb but steady. Through a narrow window, he watched Brenner being escorted in. His once proud uniform was now a costume of betrayal. The developers followed, stripped of their smugness. Davidson came last, pale, stunned, his empire of lies unraveling. A woman in a gray suit approached. Mr. Lapp, I'm Detective Sarah Chen with the state police. We'll be handling this case now. Can you come with me? She led him to an interview room. The tape recorder clicked on. I know this is overwhelming, she said gently, but I need you to start at the beginning. So Levi did. From the morning service, the photo, the vest. Jakob, the mountain, every breath of it. Chen listened, took notes, asked questions. Then she asked about the original investigation. It was brief, Levi said. Brenner led it, said he was our liaison. He hesitated. We Amish don't turn to outside authorities easily. It's our way. We thought maybe they left. Maybe something happened we didn't understand. So we accepted it. But your brother never spoke of leaving? He was under pressure, though. Developers, land. He had more than most of us. And they wanted it. Chen nodded. We found a journal at Davidson's office, she said. Very detailed. It names Brenner as the one who organized the kidnapping. He used the trust your community had in him to get close to your brother. They'd been paying him for years. He fed them information on who might sell, who might resist. Levi felt like the air had been pulled from the room. All those years, he whispered. All those dinners. He knew our children's names. I'm sorry, Chen said. I know how deep this betrayal goes. Levi's voice was hoarse. What happened to them? Do we know? Not everything, Chen replied. But based on the journal, your brother likely refused a final offer. They lured him and the family up there, kept them out of sight until they could decide what to do. When he didn't change his mind, they silenced them. All of them, Levi said quietly. Even the children. The DNA will confirm, but yours is the only missing Amish family from this area in the past 10 years. Levi lowered his head into his hands. They killed for nothing. They never even got the land. Chen looked down at her notes. Correct. After your brother vanished, they seemed to pull back. Maybe worried they'd gone too far. They waited 10 years, Levi said, tears brimming. 10 years to try again. If I'd been here, if I'd known what he was facing. You can't blame yourself, Chen said firmly. You weren't the one who did this. Levi met her eyes. We live in acceptance. That's our way. But sometimes, acceptance blinds us. We should have asked more, demanded more. A knock. An officer peeked in. Detective Mrs. Esther Lapp is here. Levi stood. He found his mother in the hallway. Her bonnet was askew, her face pale with a mixture of dread and hope. When their eyes met, she understood. No, she whispered. No, no. Levi caught her as her knees buckled. They're just bones now, Mom, he whispered. Just bones. They stood together, wrapped in grief, the kind that comes not from shock, but from the bitter arrival of long-awaited truth. Later, they were led into a quiet room, tissues on every table, soft chairs, gentle light. A forensic specialist entered, professional but compassionate. The remains are about 10 years old, she said. Adults, children, 5, the numbers match, ages match. Esther made a noise, a low, broken cry that Levi had never heard before. We'll need DNA to confirm, the woman continued, but we're confident. Can we? Esther's voice cracked. Can we see them? They're not whole remains, the doctor said gently, but we've preserved what we could. Some items, clothing, personal effects. They were taken to another room. On the table lay evidence bags, bones, bits of cloth, a child's shoe. Esther reached into her handbag and removed a photograph, the one from the porch. Aaron, Miriam, the 5 children, sunshine in their hair. She held it up to the remnants. It's them, she whispered. My son, my grandchildren. Levi stood beside her, hand trembling in hers. They had wondered for a decade. Now they knew. The truth was horrible, but it was truth. And with truth came the first chance at peace. We'll bring them home, Levi said quietly. Back to the churchyard, to rest with our people. Esther nodded. Tears streamed down her face as she kissed the photo, then tucked it back into her bag. Her family, Aaron's family, had been found, and though the discovery came with sorrow, it also brought the beginning of healing, the beginning of justice, and the end of silence.